The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, tragedy in Nauvoo. On April 6, 1830, Joseph Smith Jr. founded the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Palmyra, New York. The church moved to Missouri before being forced to leave under an extermination order. They settled in Nauvoo and grew so rapidly that the people in Nauvoo felt threatened by their sheer numbers. The members were tragically persecuted by the angered citizens of Nauvoo. Men were shot and houses burned, and finally the prophet was brutally murdered. They left everything they owned to stop the ill treatment and traveled into Utah to form a new settlement, triumphantly able to worship in peace. A church is founded. In 1823, Joseph Smith Jr. received a revelation that changed his life and led to the founding of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The Smiths were a fairly poor family. Joseph Smith Sr. was a farmer. He and his family worked hard to sustain their farm. The Smiths abandoned their farm in Vermont for better land in Palmyra, New York. Even when he was 12 years old, Joseph Smith Jr. recognized the religious debates that swept his hometown of Palmyra. Joseph Smith and his family did not belong to a church, but Smith wanted to be part of one. He often tells of that yearning in his accounts of the first vision. Who of all these parties are right? Or are they all wrong together? If any one of them be right, which is it, and how shall I know it? Joseph Smith Jr., 1820. In 1823, Smith said that he'd been visited by an angel named Moroni, who spoke to him of an ancient Hebrew text that had been lost for 1,500 years, and that he, Joseph Smith, was to translate it. In 1830, the Book of Mormon was published. In the same year, Smith founded the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The religion rapidly grew, and Smith set up a Mormon community in Missouri. However, the church continued to grow, and they often voted in blocks, so they had control over most decisions wherever they were. And because of that, people often became angry. Extermination order. During the hot summer months of 1838, relations between the Latter-day Saints and their northern Missouri neighbors continued to deteriorate rapidly. Elder Parley P. Pratt, who had arrived in Missouri in May after returning from missionary service, described the tense situation that existed. War clouds began again to lower with dark and threatening aspect. Those who had combined against the laws in the adjoining counties had long watched our increasing power and prosperity with jealousy, and with greedy and avaricious eyes. It was a common boast that as soon as we had completed our extensive improvements and had made a plentiful crop, they would drive us from the state and once more enrich themselves with the spoils. Elder Parley P. Pratt. For these and other reasons, violence erupted and tragically resulted in the expulsion of the entire church from the state of Missouri. The extermination order, issued by the 6th governor of Missouri and directed at the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The subsequent exodus of 15,000 church members in the winter of 1838 through 39. The treatment of the Mormon people in Missouri in the 1830s and beyond was barbaric. Women were raped and tortured, men were killed by mobs or driven out of state. Their property was stolen. The lucky ones were those who were left alive with nothing and were forced to make their way into a more hospitable state. Christopher K. Bond. Most of those forced from Missouri ended up founding a church settlement called Nauvoo, Illinois, on the Mississippi River, 58 miles north of Quincy. Beautiful Nauvoo. About 15,000 tragedy-stricken Mormons crossed into Illinois and settled in a swampy area along the Mississippi River. The place was a literary wilderness. The land was mostly covered with trees and bushes, and much of it was so wet that it was with the utmost difficulty that a footman could get through, and totally impossible for teams. Commerce was unhealthy. Very few could live there. But believing that it might become a healthy place by the blessing of heaven to the saints, and no more eligible place presenting itself, I considered it wisdom to make an attempt to build up a city. Joseph Smith Jr. Over the next few years, an estimated 16,000 Latter-day Saints took up residence in the city and its surrounding communities. It became one of the largest cities in Illinois at the time and an important commercial center up on the upper Mississippi. By 1844, Nauvoo's population topped 16,000, with construction being the major industry. In addition to massive housing demands, Nauvoo also had a large project under construction, a beautiful limestone temple towering over the entire community. The city brimmed with activity from blacksmiths, gunsmiths, lumberyards, brick and rope makers, and shopkeepers, women and youth organizations, Masonic lodges, and a university. Over the course of about 5 years, the Mormons rapidly lost favor with the authorities and neighboring towns. Violence and persecution sprang up among the citizens of Illinois, causing a whole new level of tragic devastation. And in 1844, there were incidents of massacre, home burning, and pillaging. Tragedy at Carthage. Joseph Smith and his brother Hiram, as well as John Taylor and Willard Richards, went willingly to Carthage jail on charges of civil disturbance. The governor of Illinois promised them protection from mob violence until the trial was held. The jailer felt that Joseph Smith and the others were falsely charged, and fearing mob violence allowed them to stay in the upper room of the jailhouse. On June 27, 1844, mobs came despite the promise for protection. They stormed the jailhouse and killed Joseph and Hiram Smith and wounded John Taylor. Willard Richards thankfully escaped unharmed and later that day wrote, "A shower of musket balls were thrown up the stairway against the door of the prison in the second story, followed by many rapid footsteps. A ball was sent through the door which hit Hiram on the side of his nose. When he fell backwards, extended at a length, without moving his feet. Joseph attempted as a last resort to leap the window, when 2 balls pierced him from the door, and one entered his right breast from without, and he fell outward, exclaiming, 'O Lord, my God!' As his feet went out of the window, my head went in. The balls whistling all around, he fell on his left side, a dead man." Willard Richards, 1844. "That lovely hand, he used to put it out to me, never passed me without shaking hands with me, wherever he was. Oh, he was the finest man I ever saw on earth. When he was killed, I could have died, just laid down and died." Jane James. Shortly after the murder, under the new leadership of Brigham Young and duress, the Mormons left Nauvoo for a new home in the West, where there was little to no settlement. Trek west. After the prophet's death, conspirators hoped that would be the end of the Mormons, but even though it did leave them in a little bit of disarray, they were not going to let go of what Joseph Smith built. "Brother Joseph, the prophet, has laid the foundation for a great work, and we will build upon it." Brigham Young. So Brigham Young, the president of the 12 Apostles, was named the temporary president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Young led the church in the decision to move west yet again. Between February and September 1846, most of the Latter-day Saints took up their march to the west, leaving their homes, their city, and their temple in the hands of those who did not care. The saints began their tedious journey to escape persecution, not knowing their sure destination. "My father went to gather some brush, there being no wood to keep me warm. His hands became very benumbed. He laid down by my side, told mother he was going to die. Mother took hold of him and gave him a shaking up, and told him she was going on to the valley. He then gave up dying." Langley Bailey, of the Martin Handcart Company, Trek West. Utah, Safe Haven. As the first wagon train rolled into the Salt Lake City Valley, Brigham Young decided that this was the place for the saints to settle. Young named the area Deseret, meaning honeybee, signifying the hive of activity that would soon inhabit the area. However, native people disagreed, and they ended up calling the area Utah. President Brigham Young stayed only 33 days before going back to assist other families on their way. At least 236 pioneer companies of approximately 60,000 pioneers crossed the plains for Utah. The members started building temples, houses, and churches. They just started life over. They farmed, built, and worked. They had a very significant impact on the American West. They turned it into what it is today. How did the Saints have an impact on Utah and other areas they settled in?
Well, most of Utah was uninhabited before they got there, and so they established many of what have now become pretty large cities.
And how did the Latter-day Saint pioneers impact your life?
Well, they impacted both our lives. You're named after your great-great-great-grandmother who came from Denmark after her and her husband were baptized, and they moved to Utah. Unfortunately, she passed away on the trek because it was so difficult, but it definitely impacted our family.
Thank you, Bishop Christensen. The first prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was Joseph Smith. The current prophet is President Russell M. Nelson. Whatever your concerns, whatever your challenges, there is a place for you in the Lord's church. Our Father in heaven cherishes his children and wants each of them to return home to him. He continued, "I express my great love for you, one that has grown over the decades of meeting you, worshiping with you, and serving you." President Russell M. Nelson. Salt Lake City and other cities along the way were greatly shaped by the Latter-day Saint pioneers' hard work, perseverance, and struggle. The church now has over 16 million members speaking 188 different languages in about 30,000 congregations. Even though they tragically suffered much loss and devastation while trying to worship freely, in the end they triumphantly set up a beautiful community that champions religious freedom.